So what are the chances that this new nomad from Georgia would be able to make the decision to change my residency, get my new to me van registered, and all the documentation that I needed to become a Texan again in one day? Well, that's what we're talking about today. So hi, I'm Dominique, and welcome to What Are the Chances? So today I want to talk to y'all about not only why I made this decision, but how I got it done. Because to be honest, before I made the decision, I did not even know it was a possibility. I had seen YouTube videos where people talk about traveling back to their home states to get their cars registered. Well, I didn't want to do that. And for those of you who haven't watched any of the previous videos, you may not know that I had just spent 6 months in Mexico. My visa was expiring, and I had made the decision to become a car lifer. I had also made the decision to make my first adventure to Alaska. Vanstock 2025 was coming up, and I thought this is a great excuse for me to finally get to see Alaska. My mom had lived there for a little while as a girl, and I had always wanted to go. Now, I do have 2 dogs, and at the time I had a GMC Terrain, so I made it as comfortable as possible for the 3 of us. And by the way, I am currently traveling through Oklahoma. I'm on my way back to Georgia, and so this is my first time making a video on the road. So please excuse the noise, and hopefully the volume is coming through clearly. I tried to use a microphone, and it was really picking up all of the outside noise, as well as it every time I hit a bump, it would randomly disconnect even though the dongle was still in there. Anyway, so back to the story. A quick recap: the day that I started car life, it also ended. About 4 hours shy of the border, I ran my car into a mountain and completely totaled it out. The 3 of us were fine. My car, yeah, not so much. There is another video on this that talks more about the details of that story, but it took me about 2 weeks to get out of Mexico. And by the time I reached Laredo, just across the border, I had made the decision to cancel the trip. It just didn't seem feasible to me. My sister had invited us to come and stay with her, and I was looking forward to seeing her and my family that's up there. But that night at the motel, I started having second thoughts. I started wondering whether or not I had jumped to the conclusion to cancel the trip too quickly. I really started thinking that I was letting stress and fear make that decision for me. So as a Virgo, believe in it or not, I like to make well thought out, logical decisions. And I started feeling like I hadn't really made that decision, that I had let everything else around me make that decision for me. My plan was to rent a car, drive to Michigan, and then buy a car up there. And so my first thought was, that's not necessarily logical. I would be spending a lot of money on the rental. Why not just buy a car there in Laredo? And then I thought, well, if I could buy a car there in Laredo, why can't dogs and I and all of my stuff. And then Beacon showed up. She was this great big white van that just lit up like a light. Appropriately, she has mountains on the side of her. And I truly feel like she guided me in the right direction. She was within my budget, but interestingly enough, she was almost exactly what I had described to my sister that I would want in a van if I were to go the van life route. She's an E350. She has an extended wheelbase. She also has a high top roof. I'm 5'10" and change. We're not going to talk about that. And I really didn't want to be completely hunched over if I was going to be in a van long term. I don't know why it seemed different in a car, but I felt like if I was going to be in a van, I would want to be able to stand up. I actually imagined a higher roof, but this is pretty close. So after speaking with the owner and him assuring me that there were no major issues with her, that he had bought her to be a camper van himself and had put a trundle bed in there, but then never got a chance to complete the process. She'd been sitting on Facebook Marketplace for 11 months. I'm imagining that her age and her high mileage, which was well over 200,000 miles, was a drawback for most people. I rented a car, drove 4 hours, went out and inspected her, sort of. I think I had already made the decision I was going to buy her. The seller was great. He and his wife made several accommodations for me and even dropped the price $500 without me asking. It was a Friday and it was a 3-day weekend. So I had to wait until Tuesday before I could try to get her registered. In that time I had learned that the city I was in, which was about an hour outside of Boston, would allow me to use the motel as my residency and I could register the van there. So I spent the weekend trying to clean her up a bit, trying to figure out how to store my stuff. I slept in her for the first time and I was pretty comfortable. Tuesday comes around and as soon as the doors open, I was there ready and waiting to get her registered. What I didn't know, and this could be lack of research on my part, was that they were going to tell me I needed to rent that motel and show proof of it for at least 2 months if I wanted to register the van there. They said they needed some sort of proof that I was actually planning on staying in the area. I mean, this made sense to me and it went right along with what I had been thinking. You need to drive back home in order to register your vehicles. You can't just register them randomly. Well, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and I wasn't thinking clearly, and I made a really dumb mistake. She sold me a 30-day temporary tag. For those of you who know, most states give you 30 days to get your vehicle registered, so why I purchased a 30-day tag, I have no idea. I walked out of there with my 30-day tag, taped it on the window, and had no clue what I was going to do next. I went and got a cup of coffee, and I started searching the internet for some sort of alternate plan. Also, what has become a habit is discussing the issues with ChatGPT. So, as I'm explaining the situation, ChatGPT pops up with, well, have you tried the the escapees mail forwarding service. I didn't know what that was. It said I could use escapees mail forwarding service and the address that they gave me as my residency in Texas to register the van. That didn't exactly make sense to me. I mean, every place I've ever registered a vehicle, I needed to provide a utility bill or something that shows proof that I'm actually living in that place, which is why the motel thing didn't surprise me, right? But ChatGPT explained that Livingston, along with several other locations in the U.S., were Nomad friendly, and that all I had to do was sign up for the service, go down there, they would give me all the information I needed, along with a permanent address, and that thousands of nomads do this every year. Once again, I had no idea. So I did a little more research. It seemed to be valid, and I made the decision to do this. So originally I had given myself 2 months from leaving in Mexico to get to Alaska. Now I had already lost a few weeks, but I wasn't in that big a hurry yet. So I decided to work slowly, even though Livingston's only a few hours away, that I would hit a couple of major areas and work there for a few days. I was about an hour outside of Austin, and I decided that would be my first stop. And I worked there for a couple days, and then I heard there was a storm coming in, and they were expecting hail. Now, one of my favorite YouTubers, who is a nomad, just had her RV destroyed by hail last year. So my first thought was, I need to duck. I don't want my van destroyed the very first week I got it. So I thought I need to duck out of the storm, and I found a mall that had a parking garage. So I was sitting there near the mall. I had turned on Uber Eats and DoorDash, but I was prepared to duck inside if I felt like the storm was coming in. But then it occurred to me, why wait there? I had already worked the area for a few days. Why not just head on down to another city? And so I did that. And as it was, that storm came in and supposedly had hail the size of baseballs. Now, I don't know if this was an exaggeration, but that's what the news said. That's how they described it. So I was really grateful I had gotten out of there and missed it completely. I had a little bit of rain, but no big deal. So I worked my way slowly down to Livingston in several different cities before I got there. And I was still a little bit leery of this. Research said it was valid, but I was kind of on the fence still about whether or not this was actually a thing. But by the time I reached there, I decided it was. So I go online and I registered to become an escapees member for the mail forwarding service. I get into the RV park, and they tell me because I'm a member, I can boondock there at a no-frills site for $7 a night. And I thought, heck yeah, I'll take that. Like $7 a night at an RV site with showers and a pool and dog park area and all of that? Yes, absolutely. So I did that. In fact, I ended up with a double site to myself. But after parking the van, which was right across the way from the office, I walked in and I was able to speak with somebody. I asked him again, like, is this real? Like, I can legitimately register but with that main tier, that I could use that address. She let me know I should go and get my driver's license and then take that to the registration office, and I'd be able to get my tags. Okay. Well, immediately after meeting with her in the office, I went online and I got my Geico insurance. I used the address that she gave me, and I got insurance for the van. And then I'm not really sure why I didn't follow her directions, but something in me was just a little bit leery, I guess, still. So I called up the registration office and verified that I had everything I needed in order to get Beacon registered. She said, yes, except you've got this in reverse. She said, you need to come here first, get your van registered, then you're going to take the paperwork that I give you over to the driver's license office and get your license. She said they can't give you a license without this paperwork. I said, okay. So at that point, I was almost a little bit up in the air. Like, did I want a driver's license that said Texas on it? And I decided I did. I would rather have everything match across the board. So I drove down to the registration office. I didn't have to pretend that I wasn't, that I was living there permanently. I thought I might have to claim to be a permanent RV resident or whatever. As soon as she saw the address, she was like, oh, you're an escapee? And I said, yeah, and I'm expecting a problem. She's like, okay, well, here's what you need to do. And she assumed I was retired already. Apparently that's quite common. And filled out the paperwork, gave me my registration, and gave me directions to the driver's license office. Okay, she told me I would probably have to make an appointment. And I thought, well, it's right down the street. I'm just going to go in there and make the appointment. I walked in. They had a kiosk set up that said you must have an appointment for to get your driver's license, and then I can make one right there. I'm not sure what happened, but for some reason I couldn't get the kiosk to function, and I thought it was operator error until somebody came over and tried as well. She worked there, and she was like, don't worry about it, you can make the appointment on your phone. And I couldn't get signal on my phone, which is part of the reason why I was using the kiosk. And so we walked outside, and we still couldn't get signal on my phone. And then she turns around, she opens the door back to the office, looks around and says, you know what, don't worry about it. She's like, we'll take you right now. I couldn't believe it. She tells me to take a seat. She goes and gets some paperwork, come back and hands it to me. Tells me to fill it out. 30 minutes later, I was walking out with my temporary driver's license. I had a permanent driver's license on the way, and I was now officially a Texan. And for y'all that say I am not a Texan, okay, I'm not. I'm a Californian. But I did spend a good portion of my childhood living in Texas. And there's always going to be a part of me that's just a little bit country. So that was how I did it all in one day. Okay, so what I didn't know until I looked into it more is that there are other benefits to becoming an escapees member. And I am not in any way affiliated with them. At least not at the time I'm doing this video. But they're not just a mail forwarding service. They can scan your mail and let you know as another tier, a more advanced tier of the service. You can have your mail scanned to you so you know what is in the mailbox ahead of time instead of having to call and check. But they're also affiliated with Harvest Host. Many of the RV parks have been purchased or merged with Harvest Host, and so you can get discounts at the Harvest Host campgrounds. There are a lot of merchants that work with them, so you can get discounts on a lot of the things that you buy. They have events. They're a huge community of people that get together to have these events. So if you're looking for community or you're looking for events to go to, you can look online and look and see what kind of events are coming up for them. And you're a part of that community. So again, benefits. But this is how I did it. This is how I got it done all in one day. And why I got it done, because I did not want to travel all the way back to Georgia. So if you find yourself in this situation, check it out. It may be exactly what you need at the time you need it. It was for me. On a personal note, I am really glad that I did not let fear and stress make that decision for me. The experience I had in Alaska is irreplaceable. I have met some of the most incredible people in the last 6 months that I've been on the road. And yeah, it's been hard. I miss my grandbabies like crazy. I miss my kids and I miss